Hello, 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 beautiful divine people. What is up? The first thing I'm going to tell you guys is you can go in my description box down below if you want to get to a certain chapter in this video. I map out all of my videos and I'll give you the subject of each section of my videos in the description below. So you can just go down there and you can click on any time that you want to go to get to where you want to be within this video. With that being said, hello, how are you and welcome. Hola, ¿cómo están? Y bienvenidos. Whether you are a new subscriber or a returning one, I am so glad that this video found you today. I believe that this video found you, or you guys found this video for a very specific reason. You may not know what it is yet, but I guarantee if you continue to watch, you will. Did you guys know that there's a study conducted that said that when somebody says something negative to anybody else, so let's say somebody says something negative to you, you are ugly, you are fat, you can't do this, there's no way that you're going to be able to achieve this, that, and the other. It takes 14 people to come back behind them and give you some positive feedback and some positive words in order for you to begin to believe the positive again. Now, look, of course that doesn't mean every single person, no matter what happens, if somebody says something negative, you're automatically going to believe it. It's not that simple. It's not that black and white, but generally speaking, and especially if this is somebody that is, an acquaintance, a friend, a family member, even a hater, if they say something and you allow it to actually get into your psyche and in your mind and in your heart, it's going to take 14 people to come behind them and say the exact opposite in order for you to once again believe the positive. So this channel, Beauty and Beyond, I am always want to be one of the 14 people that will instill love, light, knowledge, and motivation into your heart, into your spirit. And so that is kind of my point for my channel, Beauty and Beyond. I believe that we have inner beauty and outer beauty. And I believe that we cannot have outer beauty unless we have inner beauty. On Wednesdays, we work on the inner beauty. On Fridays, we work on the outer beauty. And if you are new here and you want to join this family, I want you to join this family. So hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and yes, hit the bell so that you will be notified every time I upload a new video, and I do it twice a week. So you have nothing to lose and everything to gain from joining this family. If you guys have been with me, you know that I started a series, and this series for sure was going to go through the entire month of August. So this may be the last video for that series. We will still see. I still don't know 100% yet, but it's looking like this is going to be the last video for this series. And the series is just basically a Bible study. We are talking about the Lord. We are talking about scripture, and hopefully I am helping to instill some motivation, some faith into your life. Now today, you guys, it's a doozy. It's a big one. It is a huge one, and it is the power of fear. It's like, why is fear so powerful? Fear is powerful for a few different reasons, and there is so much to it. It's kind of complex. So I want you guys to stay tuned. If you need to, go grab a drink, go grab a snack, and come back here, because we're going to talk about fear and how powerful it is, and also how it affects us in our everyday lives. And it's not in a good way. Stay tuned, because we're about to get down with fear right here, right now, Beauty and Beyond with Davion. Okay, welcome back. And again, I do have my notes and whatnot with me, so I may look down. If you see me look down, forgive me, pardon me, because I just don't want to miss anything of everything that I have on my notes. Let's get started. Fear is so super powerful, and many times fear can be used as a tool against us individually or collectively. So today I want to talk about fear from a biblical standpoint and a scientific standpoint. So guys, as human beings, fear is just a natural feeling, and it's a natural emotion that we have, right? The entire premise of our fight or flight response, that scientific fight or flight response that we have, that is based off of fear. It is a response to fear, whether that fear is real or perceived. But when we begin to base our fear off of hypotheticals, like, this could happen, or what if this does happen, and not off of facts or things that we have experienced literally in the past, Our fears they can easily become irrational. And when we carry around irrational fear with us, it makes us very worried, very insecure, very anxious, and none of those things are good for us. None of them are a healthy way to live. But the thing is, many times our illogical fears, we are the ones who give this fear life. We feed the fear, and ironically, like a vicious cycle, the more we feed into this fear, the greater the appetite of fear is. And the greater the appetite of fear is, the more we are going to be afraid, and the greater our fear expands. So if we are told that we need to be fearing this, that, or the other, it is not necessarily the things that we are watching or the people that we're listening to. It is we ourselves who are feeding this fear. But as I mentioned, a lot of the times our fear can absolutely be logical, it can be valid, and it could be real. But sometimes our fear can be illogical and irrational. So for instance, we know that our fear of running into a burning building, that is rational fear. Everybody knows, we understand why we would have a fear to run into a burning building. Likewise, most people are going to be afraid of jumping off of a building that's 50 feet or 100 feet high. No parachute, no nothing to catch you. That's a rational fear. That is a logical fear to have, to not want to run into a burning building and to not want to jump off that burning building. But when we examine irrational fears, I'm going to go ahead and take my own examples. And I know that I'm not the only one. There's so many of us out there that are incredibly afraid of spiders. I do not like spiders at all, and I have a fear of spiders. To me, I believe that it is an irrational fear, right? Because it's not like, if it's a non-poisonous spider, it's not like that spider is going to threaten me or my life in any way at all. But I still have this fear of spiders. I consider it an irrational fear when we fear something that is not a direct threat to us, and that has, nothing has ever happened. If it's not a poisonous spider, then they're not going to harm us. But the thing is, irrational fear, it has never served us as individuals, and it will never serve us as a collective. Right, you guys? Because if we are going back and looking at history, fear placed people in internment camps. I'm sure you guys remember learning about Pearl Harbor, and after that, it was fear that placed Japanese people in internment camps. Fear, it gets people senselessly killed. When somebody is afraid for their life, and yes, I'm going to take a cop. So if a cop is afraid for his life for whatever reason, they can get trigger happy, and that fear is not serving anybody. So fear, and then our actions based on said fear, it can create a bigger problem than the fear itself. Fear leaves store shelves empty of toilet paper, of hand sanitizer. Fear can override and have us disregard the law of the land. Fear has stock markets plunge based off of a singular incident. And we know that the Bible tells us that we are to love our neighbors. But how is it that we can love our neighbors if we are fearful of our neighbors? 2 Timothy 1:7 says this: God has not given us the spirit of fear, but of love, power, and a sound mind. Now that is a highly profound verse, because fear and love are mutually exclusive. And here is what I mean by that. Apart from God, we cannot love somebody or something if we fear them. 1 John 4:18 says this: there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. The reason being is because fear creates hatred. It can easily create hatred. And that's why the Bible tells us that there is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear. And then in 1 John 4:16 through 18, it says this: and so we know and rely on the love of God for us. God is love. Whoever lives in love lives in God, and God in them. This is how love is made complete among us, so that we will have confidence on the day of judgment. In this world, we are like Jesus. And here's the thing, you guys, we should never allow our fear to substitute our morals, our character, or the very meaning of right and wrong. Fear should never, ever be able to have that power over us. But make no mistake, people do use fear as a tool for their own means and for their own personal gains. Fear will never justify the means. And so it's like some people want to literally put the fear of God in us, but they're using the tools of the devil to do it. So Isaiah 43:1 says this, "Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine." See, when we are children, our parents claim us and they summon us by name. Our parents are our protectors. We don't fear because we know that the love of our parents has superseded any fear that we may have. And God tells us so many times, it is replete in the Bible about how we should not fear. And that fearing is not trusting in the Lord. But you guys, it's not like we're not ever going to be afraid. It's not like you can't ever be afraid. But there is a difference between having fear and being fearful, or living a life of fear, living your life in fear. It is a huge difference. And sometimes that fear can just take over our lives and we begin to do irrational things, have irrational thoughts, and it's all based off of hypothetical fears. I mean, just think about the last time you were anxious or you were afraid about something, and how many times has it turned out that that thing that was it was a huge, big, bad wolf in your mind, and it did not even turn out as big as you made it out to be. I think it's important that we recognize that kinds of stuff, and when fear tries to take over our lives like that, like we've got to stop it in its tracks and say, wait a second, this is not even a rational fear. This is not going to happen. Because when we allow our life to be consumed with fear, we are not living a life of God, and we are not living a life of love. I'm going to get specifically political for a second, because it's a really interesting study that was conducted between liberals and conservatives. So when we're talking about fear mongering and fear tactics, and for those of you that don't know, I'm going to put the definition of fear mongering up on the screen somewhere. It's been said that the Republican Party, they love to fear monger, and they love to use fear to get the vote that they want out of their voters, out of their constituents who are conservatives, right? So when we're talking about fear mongering or, fear tactics, let's take conservatives and liberals. So a study was conducted, and that study suggests that it is not that conservatives or Republicans are more fearful human beings. No, it is that those who succumb to a lot of fear in their life tend to live their life more conservatively. So they tend to be conservatives because they kind of live their life in general with fear. And it makes sense though, right? Because when you think about liberals, you don't think about a person that is living their life in fear, right? Liberal, they're free, they want to go do this, that, and the other, and try new things and things like that. That's what comes to my mind when I think about liberal. And so conservatives, we know what comes to our mind when we think about conservative, not taking a lot of chances, not having a lot of spontaneity in their life. They're not very spontaneous. So things like that. I just thought that was a very interesting study. But it's really important to realize and recognize that we are sowing negative seeds when we are basing any decision that we make out of fear. Let's take our vote, for instance. So if we are voting for a certain party, a certain individual based off of our fears, that vote is based off of negativity. It's based off of a negative thing. And so when we sow seeds of negativity and negative things, that's what we reap, negativity. And that is not to say that we should never be fearful, that we can never be scared, we should never be fearful. That is not saying that, like, of course we're going to have fear. There's many things that are fearful in life that we have a healthy and rational fear of. However, it is one thing to feel fear and a whole nother thing to cave into our fears. So when I think about courage, it is not the absence of fear. Courage is going forward with something in spite of the fear. But here's the thing, when you step back and kind of assess your fear, so again, let's take just everything that is going on and the political parties, you guys, both sides of politics are definitely trying to play on fears. And so if we take a step back and kind of assess the fear, we need to assess it from a place of our values. What are our values? What are our standards? What are our morals? What do we live for? Like, we should never assess fear based off of negativity and irrational hypotheticals. We have to assess our fear from our values, because we would make so many different decisions, right, and choices if we didn't base them on fear. So there is a woman rocket scientist by the name of Olympia LaPointe, and they call her the new Einstein. She's like an award-winning rocket scientist, and she has assisted in a big way, like 27 trips to space. She spoke about fear, and she spoke about 3 things that can help us get over fear and just not live our life in fear. And I just want to name those 3 things really quickly and then briefly speak about them. And again, her name is Olympia LaPointe, and she is an award-winning rocket scientist. The first thing she says about fear when we are trying to eradicate it or, work around fear, we need to name our fear and we need to reject our fear. So you can do this whether we are talking on a political plane or if it is something in your life individually, like maybe you are too afraid to go for a job because you don't believe that you have what it takes. So that kind of fear too. So we are talking about fear in general. You need to name your fear and reject your fear. For instance, if it is a job that you are afraid to apply for or afraid to go for, let's name that fear. What is it that you are afraid of? So you got to find that out. You've got to do some introspection and you got to find out what it is, why you're afraid to go for this job. Is it because you don't think you are smart enough? You don't have enough years of experience to go for this job? Whatever it is, name it and then reject it. Because whatever it is irrelevant, right? If this is something that you want to do, but you don't necessarily have the experience for, reject that notion. Reject the notion that says that you have to have X amount of years experience in order to even go out for a job. So name your fear and reject it. The second thing is reprogram your brain with different thoughts. So, when you have a fear and you have your working theory or your irrational theory about fear and why you're afraid, or, the specifics on your fear, what you need to begin to do is kind of reprogram your brain. When your computer gets a virus, and in order to get rid of the virus, we have to reboot the system. You got to reboot the computer. That's kind of what it is, right? Fear can be absolutely a virus. And so you've got to reboot your mind into not thinking the same way. You got to make your mind think differently. And the third thing that she says that we must do in order to overcome fear is to rebuild our neurons in your brain while taking action in direct opposition to the fear. For example, and I'm going to go back on the political plane now. So let's say that you are afraid of, let's just do it. Let's say that you are afraid of a minority person, a black person, a Muslim person. Let's say that you have a fear of these people. In order to rebuild the neurons in your brain and in order to take action in direct opposition of that fear, is you would need to do something like go out and literally meet a minority, meet a Black person, speak to a Muslim, because you're doing that because it is in direct opposition to your fear. So you've got to reprogram it, but take actions in direct opposition, right? Because when you're fearful, you would never want to talk to something that you're fearful of or somebody that you're fearful of. And so when you begin to do these three things, reprogram your brain, rebuild your neurons, and then take action in direct opposition to your fear, that is how you can overcome fear. I hope that made sense. And I know I keep on going back and forth from political to personal and individual, but that's the thing about fear. It is just in every single aspect of our lives. If we allow it, it can absolutely sneak in and slide into any aspect of our life. And I think a huge point to any fear is we've always have to have the Lord in the forefront of our mind. And if you guys haven't seen my video on the armor of God, I'm going to link it somewhere, because that's a huge thing. When we have the armor of God, that means that we are consciously having God in the forefront of our mind. When we have the love of Christ and the armor of God in the forefront of our mind all the time, fear cannot penetrate the way that it penetrates in your life right now. It just won't, because you are protected. You have a different thinking. You have a higher way of thinking when you are consciously believing and knowing and thinking of God. Because fear is something that is a negative thing, but we know, just like kids know as parents, kids know that their parents will always protect them and they're easily able to feel safe when their parents is around. That's how we need to be as adults and with the Lord. When we have the Lord conscious in our mind, we are not going to live some fear-driven life. Because listen, guys, fear can spread as quickly as a pandemic. And that is what's going on right now. That's what's going on today. Fear is spreading like the pandemic is spreading. And you must know from personal experience how many times fear has turned out to be a lie. Like a lot of our fear are lies. Plain and simple. It's a lie. It's not the truth. And finally, in closing, I just want you guys to know and realize and recognize this. Fear is the absence of faith. Fear is the enemy of faith and the enemy of the people. Fear is the enemy of faith and the enemy of the people. Because without faith, you have fear. But when you have faith, you do not have fear, because fear is the absence of faith. Okay, you guys, and of course, you guys know what time it is. If you're a returning subscriber, it is Spanish word of the day. You guys ready? Spanish word, Spanish sentence of today is: fear is not of God. Fear is not of God. And you say that? El miedo no es de Dios. El miedo no es de Dios. El miedo no es de Dios. And again, I'll try to do it without, accents or whatnot so you guys can hear it. So fear is not of God. El miedo no es de Dios. Fear is not of God. El miedo no es de Dios. Okay, you guys, I really hope that you enjoyed this. I absolutely enjoyed this, and we will see. This may be the last one of this series, but we may go on. I'm just not sure yet. Actually, it would be great if you guys could help me out. Do you want me to continue on Wednesdays to bring you these Bible-based videos? Yes or no? Just let me know in the comments below, and that will really help me out, help me to know if that is what you guys want to continue to see. So don't forget to hit that like button, don't forget to subscribe to this channel, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye! And if you guys love my Friday videos, the outer beauty where I do makeup and whatnot, I think you guys are gonna love this Friday's video, because this bag here, this Ipsy, is filled to the brim with dollar store makeup products. So that is what I'm doing on Friday. I'm gonna have a full face of dollar store makeup. I am super excited to see if it's going to be any good. I mean, makeup has just come up, right, these days. Drugstore makeup is awesome, but dollar store makeup, I think that it might be pretty good for dollar store makeup. So yeah, I'm excited for that. So stay tuned, and if you don't want to miss it, hit that subscribe button and hit the bell, because you will be reminded every time I upload my video. So full face of dollar store makeup. Stay tuned for that. Super excited. I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. Learned that in high school.